Welcome to the Recreate Your Health Project. I'm super excited to tell you about today's speaker, Lindsay Perez, with the Financial Gym. I don't know about you, but a major factor for my emotional and mental well-being is always worrying about money, and how that has become so complicated and tricky during this unprecedented time that we are in. So I was super excited when Lindsay agreed to be a part of our project and to talk to you guys about just best practices for your finances during this time. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I love the Financial Gym and all of the advice and the ways that they've helped me throughout my life and my career. So without further ado, here's Lindsay with the Financial Gym.
Hi, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Lindsay Perez. I'm a certified financial trainer with the Financial Gym. The Financial Gym is a financial services company focused on helping people with goals-based financial planning, whether you're looking to pay down debt, improve your credit score, learn how to save or invest, or what's most common, some combination of all of those things at the same time. The Financial Gym pairs you with a certified financial trainer who helps build a plan tailored to you and your needs, and that trainer will help to educate you, empower you, and hold you accountable. Today, we're going to be talking about personal finances in times of uncertainty. As a note, I do want to say that it's early April 2020, so if there's anything that I'm mentioning in terms of government policy or support, please do make sure that you are looking for updates, as those things are constantly changing. Today, we're going to be talking about a number of things to help you prepare for uncertain times financially. Those things include building an emergency fund, managing expenses, managing things like student loans and credit card debt, tackling a mortgage or a rent freeze, figuring out health insurance, saving for retirement, investing, as well as managing your stimulus check, potentially filing for unemployment, and giving back financially. First and foremost, we're going to talk about an emergency fund. This is probably a term that you've heard a lot, and essentially what we're talking about here is a cash savings of about 6 months of your expenses. This is really helpful if you expect to be laid off. I encourage you to start cutting expenses and focus on putting money away in savings instead. If you're not sure how much money you should have, make sure to sit down and really figure out what your expenses are month to month. Take that number, multiply it by 6, that's your ultimate goal. The emergency fund is really important in times of uncertainty because it can help us get through periods of income loss, as well as manage unexpected expenses. The other thing you can do is tap into cash in some other places. So looking at things like potentially matured savings bonds. Maybe you have an investment account that has cash in it that hasn't been invested yet. You can go ahead and pull that out. Other things like CDs, right? Certificates of deposit. Looking at when those are going to reach maturity so that you can access that cash. As a last resort, if you're in a really tight spot, you're already facing uncertainty or potential income loss, and you don't have anything in savings, there's a few things we can do to help get you through this time. The first would be to take out a balance transfer, or sorry, a 0% interest credit card. That's going to be a credit card that offers 0% interest for about 12 months. And this will allow you to make purchases if you need to in times where you're not bringing in income or things are feeling really tight, and not have those interest charges building up during this time. The other option is to consider tapping into your retirement accounts. Now, normally we would not recommend this at all, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and call it a last resort option, just because currently the government is expecting to be waiving any penalties you would normally pay for withdrawing from your 401k or IRA, for example. Typically, you will pay income taxes on withdrawals as well as a 10% penalty if you're under age 59 and a half. However, in this current time, we are hearing that those penalties will be waived. So that's an option for you to tap into as well. Of course, expense management is key, right? The more expenses we have, the more cash savings we need to tide us over. So the first thing you can do is really comb through all of your expenses and figure out where you can start to make some changes. You should look at things like canceling or freezing subscriptions or memberships, reducing debt payments. So if you do have credit card debt, make the minimum payment, but don't worry on paying as much as possible towards those credit cards. If you're overpaying on an auto loan because you thought it would be nice to pay that down faster, just go ahead and make the minimum required payment for the time being to free up cash that you can conserve instead. The other thing you can do is call your service providers and see if you can request a reduction in your monthly bill. So maybe your minimum monthly payment on that credit card is $125. You should reach out to your creditor and see if they're willing to take something smaller for the time being while we're going through this hard time. Of course, adjusting your variable spending is key too. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, when I talk about variable spending, I'm talking specifically about the kinds of things you're making choices about. We have our fixed bills, things like housing, utilities, your cell phone payment. Our variable expenses are things that we make choices about. Think groceries, dining, retail, entertainment, those kinds of things. I recommend challenging yourself to a couple of no spend days each week, especially if you're currently quarantined. There's not a whole lot of places to go out and spend your money. Adopting a cash budget is another great way to limit your spending. So if you've decided that you're only going to spend, let's say, $100 a week, make sure that you're doing that in cash. So there's a really hard barrier when you know you're out of money. Swiping a card, unfortunately, is kind of a mindless activity. And so what tends to happen is it's really hard to keep on top of where you are in terms of that weekly spend goal. Adopting a DIY mindset is great as well. It's a great creative outlet. Anything that you think that you can do yourself rather than paying for it, this is a great time to tap into that. And lastly, just delaying your normal self-care routine. So a lot of us are used to going to the salon every 3 weeks and getting our nails done, or doing waxing, or whatever else we might do for ourselves. There's not a lot of places to go, as I mentioned, so these are things that you can pause for the time being. Of course, getting creative is great too. So considering maybe moving back in with parents for a while and Airbnb-ing your apartment, renting out your car or your parking space to someone else who really needs it to help cover those costs. And of course, selling clothes online is a great way to generate some quick cash. You can look at online places like Poshmark, for example, and sell some of your goods. Let's talk student loans, because this is a place where we have a lot of opportunity for flexibility right now. So if your student loans are federal, meaning the lender is the federal government, they've actually approved 0% interest up until September 30th. They've also waived any need for a payment. So essentially those loans are in forbearance right now. Now that should have been applied automatically, but it's always worth reaching out or checking online to make sure that that is the case and the lender's not expecting a payment from you. It's important too to update your income with your loan servicer, especially if you've experienced a loss of income, because that might change your required monthly payment. For the time being, this is a place where you can just hold off on making payments and go ahead and put that money into savings instead. If you have private student loans, there's a little bit less flexibility, but it still always helps to reach out. So again, contact your student loan servicer, see what you can negotiate in terms of forbearance for a time being, perhaps a reduced interest rate. Maybe they can't completely allow you to stop paying, but they can reduce your required payment. Every little bit helps. Providers are trying to be sensitive to the fact that this is a tough economic time and that people are experiencing hardship, and so they are trying to be more flexible. But again, you have to reach out and have those conversations. I recommend applying for a balance transfer credit card. This is a new credit card that's going to offer you 0% interest for a set period of time. Typically, it's anywhere from 12 to 21 months, and this allows you to sort of deal with that debt at your own pace without those interest charges constantly being tacked on. Typically with a balance transfer card, you do have to pay a 3 to 5% transfer fee. However, given that most credit cards nowadays have an interest rate between 20 and 30%, it's still worth it financially to pay that transfer fee because it's still going to save you money, especially when you think about the fact that credit card interest is calculated daily. You're more likely to get approved if you have a credit score of at least 680, so that's something that you want to think about too. But you can always call existing credit cards and see if they have an offer for you. Now, what you're going to want to think about is if you have balances with Amex and Chase are not going to offer you any kind of 0%, period. And the reason for that is that you already owe them money. Now, they might be flexible with you if you negotiate your payment or your interest rate, but they're not going to do any kind of a balance transfer offer. Instead, what you want to think about is, do I have credit cards that are paid off that I'm not using? Especially if you haven't used them for a while, those card companies are eager to get your business again. So those are people you can reach out to and ask about those offers without having to apply for a whole new line of credit. Of course, the most important thing is to prioritize on-time minimum payments. And I mean just the minimum. So your credit card might require you to pay 25, 35, it could be a higher number, but whatever that minimum required payment is, just make sure that that's getting paid on time. And the reason we really stress that is one of the most important factors determining your credit score. So if you want to make sure that your credit score stays in good shape during this time, if you want to make sure that you can qualify for a balance transfer card to allow you more flexibility, this would be an important thing to do. I highly recommend just setting automatic payments for those so that you don't have to remember what date they're due, and just making sure, again, that minimum gets paid on time. The last thing that you can think about when it comes to credit card debt, again, having a conversation goes a long way, is reaching out to your credit card company and asking about some kind of hardship plan. They will try to help you out if you're having a hard time. They just kind of want to know that they're going to get paid in some way, shape, or form. But the more communicative you are up front, the better. The worst thing you could do is just kind of ignore it. And then that's when, a creditor might send you to a debt collector, and that's when real damage gets done to your credit score. So the more conversations you have up front, the better. Mortgages can also be really stressful during this time. So again, I keep stressing it, but having a conversation is important. Lenders are being sensitive right now, so most banks have already set up a policy around coronavirus in your mortgage. However, you can also look at hardship programs that offer temporary relief or mortgage forbearance, which would allow you to skip a couple of your payments. Unfortunately, it won't stop interest from being charged, but it'll at least give you a couple months where that big lump sum isn't going to come out of your bank account. And then, of course, on a case-by-case basis, if your situation is unique, you might also get some additional flexibility if you talk to your mortgage lender and let them know how you specifically have been impacted by the coronavirus. So again, having conversations is important to see what your options actually are, and it never hurts to ask. Of course, in this time, we're also very focused on our health, mental health, physical health, and for that reason, health insurance has come up a lot in our conversations. The best case scenario is to continue using the health insurance provided by your employer, assuming that you continue to be employed. COBRA tends to be very expensive. You can typically expect to pay about $500 a month. So if you did want to just go to the marketplace and get your own coverage, that's not the most cost-effective choice. However, if you are experiencing a hardship and you need to seek coverage elsewhere other than an employer, we have some other options besides COBRA. So you could look at your state exchange. You're going to go ahead and go to your government website and just apply through there. Low-income adults might even qualify for Medicaid. So often you can get coverage for very little or even nothing at all. Some other options you can look at are Oscar Health. You can also look at some healthcare sharing ministries. Essentially, these are places that you pay into and receive coverage as part of a group plan. So those are another option for you. do your research, see what your options are. Again, most cost effective is to remain on your employer plan if you can, but it's always good to know that you have options if you can't do that. Now let's talk investing, because this is another question that we get a lot, especially during this time of market downturn. Right now is a great time to invest. Essentially, the stock market dip is like a store having a sale where you can get 2 for 1. If you're already prepared for the worst, so you have your emergency fund intact and you've got all of your consumer debt under control, and you have available cash in your budget, now is a great time to either get started or even potentially bump up your investing depending on what you've been doing thus far. If you haven't been investing previously, my best advice on how to get started is to look at some robo-advisor options. Places like Betterment, Allvest, SoFi. The reason I encourage you to look at these is because there's no investment minimum. So you really can get started with $10 if that's all you have. And you don't have to feel like you have to do a bunch of research to start. So you can really get started sooner. Time is the #1 thing on your side when it comes to investing. So the faster you can get your money into the market, the better. I know a lot of people find the concept of investing to be kind of elusive. There's a lot of jargon. It's very intimidating and it can be very anxiety inducing if you're not that comfortable with the concept. So the nice thing about the robo-advisor is there's not a lot of choices for you to make. From a user experience perspective, it's kind of just like putting money into a savings account, okay? You're gonna set up an account based on your goals, whatever you're investing for, whether it's a home purchase in 5 years or just general wealth building or to supplement you in retirement. And then your money will be invested according to the algorithms that the robo-advisor has put together. So it's a great way to get started. If at some point you wanted to be more hands-on, you could look at some other options, places like Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab. Those are more traditional broker-dealers that still have very low fees. Of course, in terms of your 401k, we don't want to touch that. In times like these, it's a common reflex to want to change your investment portfolio. However, that's the worst thing you could do right now. We don't want to sell anything. Essentially, remember me saying it's like a store having a sale. If everything is heavily discounted, you don't want to sell it right now. You want to hold on to it and wait for it to go back up to the value that it was at before. And I mentioned that time is the most important thing on your side, and you should know that the stock market will bounce back. It always does. It's just a matter of timing. So for the time being, just don't look at the account if it's making you feel stressed out. But definitely don't change your allocation, assuming that you can continue to afford investing into retirement. Just keep doing it. And just to give you a sense of what the stock market typically does, here's a look at the S&P 500 over time. The little section that I've noted in here, you can see the last major dip we had in the market. So the last time we had a recession in 2008, you can see that we actually hit what we call our bottom or lowest point around February of 2009. And essentially from that point, it took about 3 years to get back to the previous levels that the market was at. Since then, the market has grown exponentially, and you can see that the dip this time is not nearly as significant as it was before. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to know if we're at the bottom until we've passed it, right? Hindsight is 2020. We'll know that the market's not going to dip any further once it's started to grow again. But the point of showing you this is to say that it really is just a matter of time. The market always recovers, and this was actually one of the longer recoveries that we've ever seen. So at most, it will take us 2 to 3 years to get back to the levels we were at before this, but it will bounce back. So again, don't touch those investments. Just make sure to invest if you can. If you need to pause them because you're tight on cash, that's of course totally fine. But now is not the time to sell things and make changes. Now, there is some relief coming from the government, and I mentioned that at the beginning. So this is kind of what we know so far. Again, it's early April 2020. If you're watching this at some point in the future, make sure that you're looking for updates because this information is constantly changing. What we know so far about the stimulus package is that everyone who makes $75,000 or less can expect a check of about $1,200. If you make somewhere between 75 and 100,000, you will also get a check. In addition, families who have children who are 16 or younger can expect an additional $500 per child. This number is going to be determined based on your income taxes as of 2019 if you've already filed, or as of 2018 if you haven't yet filed for last year. An important thing to note, if you haven't filed for this year, but you would qualify with your new tax information, make sure to get those filed as soon as you can. The money is expected to be direct deposited into your account, assuming that that's how your tax return is typically delivered to you. So if you file your tax return and you provide your checking account information and that's how you receive that return, the government's just going to use the same banking information to provide you with your stimulus money. If that's not the case for you and you haven't provided direct deposit information, then there is going to be a web portal where you can sign up. If you have actually provided the banking information already and you are one of those direct deposit people, the timeline we're hearing right now is that they're expecting the first payments to go out by April 17th. If you haven't provided banking information, it's going to take some more time, but it does seem like this is in motion, so hopefully we will see these come out fairly soon. The couple of other things I wanted to mention in terms of the stimulus or the CARES Act is the student loans, which we already talked about. They are offering 0% interest through September 30th. All of those federal loans have also been put into forbearance, which is great. There won't be any student loan interest added in the future, so no need to worry about that. This is sort of a free and clear period to pause those payments. There's a lot of business benefits for small businesses, so if you are a business owner, make sure to look into those as well. They are offering loans that are potentially 100% forgivable, assuming that the loans are used to pay employee salaries and to keep the employees that you have now. There's also been an expansion of unemployment benefits. So typically, self-employed contractors, freelancers don't qualify for unemployment. However, they have expanded the definition to include all, and in fact, you can even receive partial unemployment if you haven't completely lost your job, but have just seen a significant reduction in hours or income due to the coronavirus situation. The last thing I wanted to mention is withdrawals from retirement plans, which I touched on a previous slide, but again, the penalty fees that normally get charged when you withdraw money prior to age 59 and a half have been paused for the time being. So those are being waived. You can withdraw money from your retirement accounts if needed without paying that 10% penalty. I also wanted to note that the stimulus check that you'll be receiving will not be taxable. So no need to worry about that. If you're eligible for the $1,200, it's your $1,200 free and clear. I mentioned filing for employment and then expanding that definition, but filing for employment can be kind of intimidating. So I just wanted to touch real quick on how to do that. What's the process? First and foremost, file as soon as possible. It can take some time to actually get this paid out to you. So unless you're getting a severance that's being paid out intermittently, meaning your company is offering you some severance pay and they're going to essentially issue it to you like a paycheck over the next few months, make sure that you file right away for this unemployment. You can opt to have taxes taken out. Unemployment is taxable income, and I do recommend that you opt to have the taxes taken out. This way you don't have to worry about a major tax bill in the future. You only really want to collect unemployment when you need the extra income. Because this extends the amount of time the unemployment benefits will last for everyone and for yourself. So you really want to wait until this is absolutely necessary for you. And then make sure that you're actively searching for work, even if it's part-time. You do need to be looking for work in order to qualify for unemployment, and in fact, often have to show proof that you are applying to things. So we want to make sure that you're still actively looking. The idea is unemployment is to help get you through for a certain amount of time until you can be working again. You'll want to go ahead and make sure to visit your state's unemployment site because there are some additional benefits that you can get there, and we've included a link at the bottom of this slide. Giving back is something that a lot of people have been looking to do throughout this time, and so we wanted to touch on this as well. Giving back is a great thing to do, but I always say you can't pour from an empty pot. So you want to make sure you're not overextending yourself, right? Prioritize how you want to give back. Right? Are you going to budget for it, or are you going to give of your time? If you're going to budget to make financial contributions, this might be in the form of a charitable donation, ordering from a local restaurant and tipping well, buying a gift card for a restaurant that you can use in the future just to support them. Whatever it might be, make sure that you're setting a dollar amount. Giving back is a great thing to do, but if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not able to pay your own bills, then you're not really able to give to others, right? And you're just kind of creating stress for yourself. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you can't give back financially, don't worry, because giving of your time is equally important and often can be 10 times more rewarding for you personally. Right now, you can do things like sew masks, you can donate your Metro card to a healthcare worker, sign petitions for local politicians to help with certain governance, you can write letters to friends and help them feel supported, and of course, work to call the elderly in your neighborhood to make sure that they have everything that they need. There's a lot of local charities working on all of these items, so I encourage you to look for those in your area and get involved. Giving of your time is really important, and like I said, sometimes more impactful than supporting others financially. However, supporting others financially is a great thing to do. Again, we just want to make sure that it's a line item in our budget so that we're all set. There's a number of resources that we're offering during this time that I just want to make you aware of, and we will be updating these frequently. There's a COVID-19 resources page on the Financial Gym website, thefinancialgym.com. We also have links to a number of free blog posts, webinars, and podcast episodes ranging on a number of different financial topics that you might find helpful and frankly entertaining during this time when some of us may have some more downtime. And of course, we have a great Instagram account offering daily tips. At noon every day, we are going live. A certified financial trainer will spend an hour answering questions that you might have about navigating this time financially. And you can follow us at the Financial Gym. And so with that, I just wanted to say thank you. I know that health and finances are top of mind right now. I know they're not always the most fun things to think about, and they can feel very stressful, but one of the best things that we can do to take care of ourselves is really to educate ourselves and prepare financially for the future. So thank you for taking the time to do that for yourselves today and for spending some time with me.